Good afternoon, boys and girls. It's Mrs. Disidore, and I am here to conclude for the conclusion of Skellig. It's our last chapter, and everything is coming out well for Michael, which is great. His baby sister's getting better from the surgery. He got to see Skellig one last time. We're still unsure as to what he is. Is he a part? He even doesn't even, Skellig himself doesn't even know what he is. He says he's part beast, part bird, part angel. Very interesting. So let's read the last chapter. We left off yesterday with so Skellig left. They got to see him. They floated in the air one last time. He rose them up. So now he is. Mina said that the builders are going to be coming soon to where that abandoned house. They're going to start fixing it up. It used to be her grandmother's, and now they gave it to her for when she's older. And that's where we are. Chapter 45. That Saturday, the builders came to sort the garage out. There were 3 of them, an old man and a cat, Mr. Bately and his 2 sons, Nick and Gus. They thumped the walls and watched them sway and tremble. They heard the roof creaking and sagging. They scratched the bricks and watched them flake easily away. They yanked Dad's planks off and peered inside. Oh, so this is actually the garage that was in Michael's backyard. So the builders are coming. We'll see what happens, see what they do with that garage. Mr. Bately took his cap off and scratched his bald head. Wouldn't get me in there even for extra money, he said. He pondered, he shrugged, and twisted his mouth and looked at Dad. Know what I'm going to say, don't you? He said. Suppose so, said Dad. Nothing else for it. Knock it down and start again. So he's saying that there's nothing left of that garage. You got to just knock it down. Nope. Pages are stuck. Dad looked at me. What do you think? He said. Don't know, I said. Easy choice, said Mr. Bately. Knock it down or sit and watch it fall down. Dad laughed. Go on then, he said. Get the stuff out from inside and knock it down. They put steel props up to keep the roof from falling in while they worked inside. They brought the junk out and laid it around Ernie's toilet in the backyard. All the ancient chests of drawers, the broken wash basins, the bags of cement, the broken doors, the tattered deck chairs, rotted carpets, the ropes, the pipes, the newspapers and magazines, the coils of cable, the bags of nails. Dad and I went through it all as they brought it out. We kept saying, this'll come in useful. Then saying, no, it won't. It's just a piece of junk. A truck came and left a huge dumpster in the back lane. We chucked in everything. We were all covered in dead bugs, spiders, brick, and mortar dust. When it was empty, we stood around drinking tea and laughing at the mess. I went to the door alone and stared in. Michael, said Dad. Yes, I told him. I know, I won't go in. He told the builders about how desperate I'd been to get in there after we'd move in. Just like these 2 used to be, said Mr. Bately. Show them something dark and dangerous, and it was the devil's own work to keep them out. I kept on staring, just rubble and dust and broken pottery, and in the far corner, a couple of takeout trays, some brown bottles of root beer, a scattered handful of feathers, the pellets. I sighed and whispered, Goodbye, Skellig. Then the builders and Dad were at my back. See, said Mr. Bately, pointing past me. Looks like you've got a vagrant spending a night or 2 in there. Lucky the whole lot didn't come down on his head. Then we finished the tea. Mr. Bately rubbed his hands. Right then, lads, time for a bit of a knocky-down day. It only took an hour or 2. We stood in the kitchen and watched them work with crowbars and sledgehammers and saws. We bit our lips and shook our heads each time a bit of roof or a bit of wall fell with a massive thump. Soon the garage was just a great pile of bricks and timber and dust. Least we'll have a nice long garden for the baby to play in, I said. He nodded and started talking about the lawn he'd lay and the pond he'd dig and the shrubs he'd plant for the birds to build their nests. Ha! A little paradise for us all, he said. When it was over, Gus and Nick stood proud and happy with their hands on their hips. Mr. Bately, white as death with dust, gave us the thumbs up, and we went out with more tea. All right. Actually, there is another chapter I didn't realize. Well, this is the last chapter, chapter 46. She came home on a Sunday, a beautiful, bright, warm day. It was really spring at last. Dad went off in the car and I stayed behind to finish cleaning the kitchen. I wrapped last night's takeout containers in newspapers and threw them in the bin. I put the kettle on for Mom. I went upstairs and slipped the baby's feather under her mattress. I smiled because I knew she'd have the best of dreams. So he took the feather that Skellig left him and Michael put it under the baby's pillow. I waited, looking out into the empty space left by Mr. Bately and his sons. Even the cracked concrete floor was gone now. There was a wooden fence instead of the back wall. I imagined the garden, filled it with all the shrubs and flowers and the grass that would soon be growing where the ragged yard had been. I trembled when I heard the car. I couldn't move. Then I took deep breaths and thought of Skellig and went to open the front door. Dad had the baby in his arms. Mom stood there beaming. "Welcome home, Mom," I said, using the words I'd practiced. She smiled at how nervous I was. She took my hand and led me back into the house, into the kitchen. She sat me on a chair and put the baby in my arms. "Look how beautiful your sister is," she said. "Look how strong she is." I lifted the baby higher. She arched her back like she was about to dance or fly. She reached out and scratched with her tiny nails at the skin of my face. She tugged at my lips and touched my tongue. She tasted of milk and salt and of something mysterious, sweet and sour all at once. She whimpered and gurgled. I held her close and her dark eyes looked right into mine, right into the place where all my dreams were, and she smiled. "She'll have to keep going for checkups," Mom said. But they're sure the danger's gone, Michael. Your sister is really going to be all right." We laid the baby on the table and sat around her. We didn't know what to say. Mom drank her tea. Dad had his root beer. We just sat there looking at each other and touching each other, and we laughed and laughed and we cried and cried. Soon there was a gentle knock at the door. I went and found Nina standing there. She was shy and quiet, like I'd never seen her before. She started to say something, but it was a mumble and she ended up just looking into my eyes. "Come and see," I said. I took her hand and led her into the kitchen. She said good evening politely to my parents. She said she'd hoped they didn't mind. Dad shifted aside to let her in beside the table. She looked down at the baby. "She's beautiful," she gasped. "She's extraordinary." And she looked around and laughed with us all. She was really shy again when she said, "I brought a present. I hope you don't mind." She unrolled a picture of Skellig, with his wings rising from his back and a tender smile on his white face. Mom caught her breath. She stared at me, and she stared at Mina. For a moment, I thought she was going to ask us something. Then she simply smiled at both of us. "Just something I made up," said Mina. "I thought the baby might like it on her wall." "It's really lovely, Mina," Mom said, and she took it gently from Mina's hands. "Thank you," said Mina. She stood there awkwardly. "I'll leave you alone now." I led her back to the door. We smiled at each other. "See you tomorrow, Mina." "See you tomorrow, Michael." I watched her walk away in the late light. From across the street, Whisper came to join her. When Mina stooped down to stroke the cat, I was sure I saw for a second the ghostly image of her wings. Back in the kitchen, they were talking again about giving the baby a proper name. "Persephone," I said. "Not that mouthful again," said Dad. We thought a little longer, and in the end, we simply called her Joy. So that is the end of Skellig. And I just wanted to read you a little bit about what the author, David Almond, was thinking when he wrote his book, because it'll answer or may not answer some of your questions. It's wonderful to have this beautiful new edition of Skellig. I wrote this book 10 years ago, and it hasn't stopped flying since. It keeps on reaching new readers of all ages and is now available in more than 30 languages all around the world. And the story keeps on changing and evolving, taking on new life beyond the page. Soon after publication, it became a radio show. Then I adapted it for the stage, and it was a massive hit. So it was also a play in London. As I write this letter, 3 new versions of the story are underway. The movie, starring Tim Roth as Skellig, is currently being filmed. Oh, so there is a movie if you're interested in Skellig. And there's an opera also of Skellig. That's interesting. Let's see. This all makes me very happy. When I wrote this story, it came to me with great energy and force. At times, it almost seemed to write itself. I was never quite sure what would happen next and what would happen at the end. When Michael stepped into the garage for the first time, I had no idea what he would find in there, and the story still leaves me wondering. Where did Skellig come from? How did he get into the garage? Where does he go at the end? Well, I have no answers to these questions, and I'm afraid I have no simple answer to the question that I'm asked so often. What is Skellig? He's a mystery, even to me. He's something like a bird, something like a beast, something like an angel, something like you, something like me, something like that. But then, isn't much of life very strange, very mysterious, very wonderful? For me, Mina was always the most important and most interesting character. When she popped up behind Michael and asked, "Are you the new boy here?" It was as if she was asking me the same question. She jumped into the book with her own life and interests. She's been with me ever since, and in many ways, I wonder more about her than I do about Skellig. Did she ever go to school? How old was she when her father died? Did she know Ernie Myers? And I always wonder about her notebooks and sketchbooks, which were so important to her. In fact, I've started to try to recreate some of Mina's writings. The section here is about her journey with her mom. The journey takes place just before the story of Skellig starts. Michael and his family have moved into Falconer Road. Mina hasn't yet met Michael, but it won't be long before she appears at the top of the wall and says, "Are you the new boy here?" So I just wanted to read you the author and what he says to his readers, because even though he created this book, he created Skellig, he still does not even know what he is. He kind of just kept writing and writing and writing, and I think he wants to leave that imagination up to the reader. What is he? To me, I think he's somewhat of an angel, definitely, definitely angelic. So I hope you liked this book. It's very different. I think it's more of a fantasy, I'd say, because Skellig is a mystical type being, a magical type creature. So that's what makes this book, this novel, a fantasy. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. It is Mother's Day on Sunday, so be extra nice to your mommies. And please know I miss you each and every day, and I can't wait to get back to Laurel Park. All right, enjoy your weekend, guys. Love ya.